You're right, kids, it's Ross Clark, and in celebration of Ark turning 5 years old, I thought it would be only befitting to share with you my story. How I was born into the prehistoric virtual wonder, grew alongside its development, and ultimately brought me to owner of a mildly successful server cluster. The following is a collection of stories, screenshots, videos, and reenactments of my tale. So follow me on a journey from Bob to owner. After eagerly awaiting its launch on PS4, inspired by the likes of Frankie on PC in 1080p, to grow a love for a game I hadn't even begun, I finally spawned on the beaches of Server 29, blinded by the glare, bouncing along South 1 Beach. The initial hour or so was, to say the least, punishing, as I attempted to persevere through leg-breaking tree punching, death limbo temperatures as night fell, and blackberries that would send me to an early sleep. I finally got my 1x1 thatch hut made, with a roaring campfire to keep me warm. However, as night fell and the welcoming light of the fire shone to everything around me, I experienced my first of many arked moments. Like straight out of Jurassic Park, a rumble began to shake my Bob house, and a Spinosaurus teared through my shack and body like a tornado with teeth. It was here I'd learned my first lesson, that living on a beach would be living in hell. So, with a few levels and subsequent stats on my character, I ventured inland a little. Whilst it seems so small now, at the time it felt like I covered such a distance as I ventured up this hill, and found a cliff edge that invited me as I upgraded to wood and then stone, avoided ferocious dilo gangs, and tamed my first dino, a Phiomia. That lasted as long as you'd expect. Gaining further courage as I grinded more materials and levelled up, I ventured towards the red beacon illuminating the sky. As I approached it, a gang of clothless, abnormally figured people met me, known as the Hyule lads, who decided to invite me into their tribe, introduce me to explorer notes to help level me up, and set about building a raft. It wasn't anything special, your standard box boat, but by God did it feel like the world had opened. Taking to the seas and seeing how expansive the map really was. The next day I logged back on. The tribe had left. I'm guessing moved on to another server, but never returned, so I set sail north and, by nightfall, had found a stream that I could take the raft inland with. I happened upon my first metal base with turrets, sitting near what would be known as Alpha Pillar, and quickly carried on by until I was greeted by a dense forest with a convenient place to stash my boat. Acknowledging how dense and dark these trees were, it was here I would begin building my first proper base, grinding away, making piece by piece to build a stone treehouse. Coincidentally, a group of people I played with on a previous game had just been raided on another server, and with some little persuasion I'd imagine, came over and I officially had a real gang of proper tribe mates. Zero, Tail, Red and Ninja. And together we set about the grind to achieve a metal base. But not before our first raid defense occurred. It's unbelievable to compare it to today's Ark standards of living, but we really did defend off people in a stone base with one singular explant, pikes, and barely a handful of ammo for our basic entry guns. And the grind began, with very little worry of anyone else hitting us. That metal base I passed by in the boat, well, it turned out to be the alpha of Server 29, with a thirst for PvP and a willing to protect us as we caught up with them. Those first moments were truly special. The first tames, the first forge, the first quets, the first metal grind, the first baby dinos, the first giga, which was a sight to behold. For whatever reason, gigas just didn't spawn on our map. And then, there it was. It was a real team effort to bring down this ferocious beast. But we did it. We had a goddamn Gigantosaurus. With our metal base, we felt really formidable. And here's some words from Zero on his account of things.
I like turtles.
But then, the global chat started yelling of a dragon flying around the map. A dragon! Wyverns were unheard of, but we really feared for every tribe on that map. Our tribe split into two, my half defending the base, sitting on mounted turret guns watching the skies, and the other half flying out on pre-nerfed, hard-hitting Argies. I never did get to see the wyverns myself, but our tribe found them, and lo and behold, killed them. From that day, we had affirmed ourselves as a formidable tribe to the server, renaming ourselves as plainly Hyule, and had the respect of everyone, trading and helping all tribes to make sure we were well equipped should another wyvern show up again, even taking up an interrogation hobby against any would-be griefers. But yeah, wyverns became the hot commodity to tribes seeking alpha status, so our tribe set out to the next location in the world of Ark, Scorched Earth. I recall how punishing, unforgiving and brutal the map was then. With barely the clothes on my back and a flyer, every egg run felt like a desperate hunt against the odds, with many casualties, mainly to the tribes that had already founded their stake on the map. But we did it! We had wyvern eggs! But being the only tribe on our server with these, we feared for their safety, and raised them in secret within a closed off room in our dark forest. Days later, through sleepless commitments, we had them, 4 giant beasts capable of breathing sheer element at whatever we chose fit. Still, fearing for their rarity, we created a shelter to hide them away in near our base. I believe it was the very next day, before we had properly fortified the shelter, that we logged on to find Red in our tribe log. Cross-server raiders had found it and killed all 4 of them. It was a deflating day for our tribe to have put that effort in, only to lose what we barely used. So, in some courageous act of defiance, I set course to find the people who had done this. At the time, PSN names would show in the log, so using this and checking the profiles, I managed to track them down to their home server. Following some lengthy reconnaissance work, I'd finally found their base, centred at the Stonehenge rocky isles of South 3. By now, all established tribes were allied, armed and thirsty for war. So, with very little convincing, the entire server opted to help us bring justice to the dead wyverns and raid this tribe. The almost adrenaline-inducing preparation was thrilling to say the least, as we quietly skulked about in the dark, tribed up together, amassed preparations and launched our attack from the west. Many died that day and we barely broke the door down, but we had regained pride, killing a wealth of enemy dinos. So, set about our escape, which was once again a thrilling experience as the whole server was on red alert, searching the area for us. And so a server war began, with us returning for a second attempt, this time armed with the best war raft I'd ever seen, which sure enough created some carnage. What's more was the strong alliance of our pride our server shared, something we would learn to not be as unified as we thought. See, our server was almost split down the middle between the British and the French. Despite my attempts to keep us unified, the French tribes were scheming, led by the tribe known as Hum. The French alliance began to quietly pick off the British tribes one by one until we learnt of their uprising. So, no discussion was needed, and we would have to wipe Hum before they attempted to dominate the server. And by God, did we put on a show. Taming the Titanosaur was one of the hardest, resource-thirsty events we had done yet. Unprepared for the time it would take to finally tame it, but we did it. Other tribes lined up to attack Hum. We would fashionably turn up late with the most epic armoury a tribe had ever seen on our server to date. Sadly, due to an unprecedented volume of lag-creating explants, the first of many exploits Ark would have locked away, the raid was a bust, and we would walk away with reptilian tails between our legs to scheme a new plan. But the cat was well and truly out of the bag, and every tribe in the alliance would now be on alert. Except you can't be on alert if you're asleep, as we all found out besides one tribe member. But it wasn't Hum. It was the server we had cross-raided previously, armed with rock golems, giant turret-soaking heaps of rock that we had never witnessed before, and certainly wasn't prepared for as they reduced our stone perimeter to rubble. However, sometimes those desperate moments unleash power, as all Rexes we had tamed up until this point were whistled aggressive, breaking them down to the same pebbles our stone wall had become too. Now we had 2 sizable enemies. Our original Alpha had quit, leaving an almost decayed base, and we had a new fear of rock elemental power. There was only one thing we could seemingly do. and that was to attempt to move what we could to the Alpha Pillar and take comfort in some space safe away from any ground teams. But it certainly wouldn't be big enough for our wealth of dinos, so with the artifacts we had gained over time, proceeded to enter our Rex army into what would be a suicide mission, Broodmother on medium, or beta as it was. We were certainly unprepared, attempting it with only wild tame dinos and some laughable saddle armour, but nevertheless that initial boss encounter was eye-opening, and something I really wasn't ready to give up on yet. The next day passed, and sure enough, our original home had been hit whilst we were asleep, leaving very little but deflation from most of our tribe. With our handful of dinos left, the war on Hum continued, and with some new, carefree attitude, they were put to some excellent use. See, I had recently discovered you could play C4 on wild dinos, a well-timed drop from a Quetzal, and well, between us, an Iranian tribe who we originally helped protect, who had grown, and then some, Salsa, as well as Pepperoni, the Jones, Primal Instinct, Wildlands and Stinging Roger. We had done it. We had brought the server back to a unified peace. The French alliance had all left and we were free to rebuild in peace. And boy did we rebuild, beginning with a clean-up job with the same Titan that was used to flatten Hum. Once again, those first moments started to appear again, under the new aptly titled tribe name Hyule. As the base developed, dino mutations became common ground. Raising seemed to get easier, helped a little by the water raising exploit someone figured out. Everyone had their own purpose-made water raising area, so dinos would eat slower whilst floating. As our Rex line grew, our artifact cave exploration improved, figuring out how to earn some quality BPs to boot. And Tech Tier was announced. There was really no better time to challenge that Broodmother again. And so we did. Tech Tier. The beginning of the end of Legacy. As we was busy grinding those artifacts and apex items, organising boss runs with various allies, using a variety of exploits. The pistol exploit on Dragon was by far the best, being a virtually impossible boss. Expanding the base with our shiny new tech, fending off the odd attack from Hum or some random troll that needed knocking out or locking up, creating a beta tribe for new recruits. Duping had begun to hit the scene. And like it sounds, everyone wanted a piece of the action. Every tribe knew someone that duped. It was a sad state of affairs, but it was true. I never tried to dupe, but I did willingly receive several duped things from allied tribes, payment if you will, for supporting them in cross-server raids against whoever dared to cross the mighty Salsa. But the biggest dupe payout was yet to come. See, we had taken an interest in Moses, being the gigas of the ocean. It was again a commodity for status, and we had some whoppers, until one met the surface and insta-died. Frustrated by this, I decided to plead a wildcard to reimburse us for a pretty unfair loss. And after some time and proof passed, a GM appeared on 29 and happily respawned it for us. However, he spawned it at the level it died, not the level it was wild. And after it happening again, we had these monstrous impossible tames. Through a contact in Space Cowboys, who had recently raided a wealth of duped Dothraki loot, we kindly lent out the Moses for a small fee of a complete tech upgrade. It was nice to have, but naturally unfulfilling as the game really wasn't what it was anymore. An announcement from Wildcard they would be relaunching official to fix tubing, and a left for dust sort of feeling. But in true Ark style, we bowed out a legacy with an Arky exploit one could use to ascend in the tech cave before the Overseer patched itself in. After a small legacy stint on Ragnarok, the latest and greatest map to launch, where I got meat run during a week-long siege, built a new base, and returned my best and most successful raid to date, it was finally time to have a break. Which didn't last long, as unofficial servers were on the uprise, promising an improved, boosted version of the game, with dedicated admin support. So it seemed the only natural progression for me, as I'd done the official grind for it to be wiped. I needed something that offered the same, but with a little less of the commitment. Having traded via Ark Facebook pages in the past, I picked up the one that looked inviting, Fantastark, offering marginally boosted rates to that of official, but ORP, which being solo now seemed like the perfect balance for me. And so it began. I originally planned to take Alpha Spiral on Ragnarok, however, being already occupied pushed me along the plains to overlooking the canyon. It was here I began the new grind, albeit at a friendlier rate, with friendly enough tribes and a friendly admin team. It almost felt too easy as I climbed swiftly through the structural tiers, raising my new army. I quickly befriended another tribe, introducing me to Damo and Tyson, and together, after some deliberation on a unique name after Tyson's South African origin and my real life pet African land snail, announced ourselves as the Diamond Snails. It was quite the PvE affair as the owner dropped the casual PvP in turn for the dedicated PvP maps, and I experienced everything most maps had to offer, learning the best locations for drop running, taming, resource farming, boss running, but most important of all, events. See, an event created by an admin was unlike anything I'd seen before. A rule-based game that was created for our entertainment with some incentive. Events such as Golden Griffin fights, death mazes and wingsuit racing with a prize to win something that would take some time to grind created a whole new competitive element I'd eagerly anticipate in a game of Pride. This certainly opened an inner me, as I wanted to push myself under different criteria, with a standout moment being dropped in the blue zone of aberration for the first time, naked besides a pike and a few parachutes, and told to get back to Portal, which I incredibly pulled off as I traversed the arms of the large looming tree. Here's a word from Tyson on his account of things.
Are you recording?
We certainly gained a reputation from the admins, and shortly after the host decided to merge the PvE and PvP maps back together for a once again PvP experience, I was asked to join the admin team. But not before I would meet Snow, a wise, cracking, obnoxious, but loyal and trusting friend. They were all trusting the Diamond Snail squad, and we really grew together as we began the journey through to PvP HUD. I know it began with some attempt to defend a smaller tribe being repeatedly hit, but that first organised raid would define my place in Ark. I would proceed to create a plan of attack, drawn out like any real battle plan, with code names and contingencies should things go wrong. But ultimately it needed irony as we were hitting a tribe called Titan, and as such, needed a Titan. Almost our entire tribe had also attained admin status as we delivered some brilliantly creative events. The standout being the Haunted House event we did, ending with a Broodmother chase. After several events, some tribe bonding as we proceeded to obtain artifacts across a few of the maps, and a few solo raids, the casual experience just wasn't satisfying the PvP in us, and our next adventure began. Searching for something that promoted PvP with bigger boosts, a server called Clusterfucked opened the door, and I sank into the shadow depths of Scorched Earth, enlightened by the volume of tech-coded instructs. And sure enough, as the game had invited me to PvP, it quickly spat me out as I got offline whilst on another map, taming a Giga. Learning that SE was no place to hide, I took to Centre, a map I never really appreciated until now, with its catalogue of rat holes and unorthodox build locations. After taming a flyer, I'd take shelter in a hole we come to call Top Shelf, as I used it to store infinite presents of tech offerings as I'd run from drop to drop. As the rest of the team joined me, Top Shelf would no longer be big enough as we worked to fortify a base on the unloved, undetailed rocks of the centre drop-off. It was certainly a mishap of a home, but our home, as we began to truly adapt to a PvP intense life. The raids, loot and base building came quick and fast. I lost count of how many bases we raided, and without a doubt we would slowly make a name with the alphas of each map. We would eventually have to alliance with someone, as the main map alphas were asking, and lightly concerned we would be allied to the other, so it made sense to back the alphas we shared a map with, and together we went to war. That raid was without question the pinnacle of everything we had come to learn so far, throwing everything at multiple bases on the opposing alliance's map. through perseverance, teamwork and a tremendous effort to see a great base fall in one long night. But we would wake up to find out the map had rolled back to almost the minute we began to fob up. Whilst the owner was adamant they had nothing to do with the rollback, it looked how it looked, and we decided to leave and find a new home. But something was lost now. We set a bar for ourselves that was deniably mistrusted, and as we ventured from server to server, we found ourselves returning to the cluster that brought us together, Fantastark. Coincidentally, as Extinction dropped. Bringing a reputation with us, our initial climb to grind to a formidable base was an encountering one, as the tribe I had raided before we left were now the top dogs and I'm sure thirsty for revenge. The rivalry was great as we fended them off at a primitive stage and attempted a few hits back. It was pretty much a constant battle between us, and we quietly attempted to build our biggest base to date, located in the cunning cave of the map it all started, the island. Just before Extinction dropped, it sadly became an ORP race to catch each other when the other was on, creating a sad bitterness between us both. We eventually managed to catch them online and execute a raid on their sea base storage, but they were already looking to quit, I believe, and this raid probably sealed their decision. Then Extinction graced us with its apocalyptic world, hiding some brilliant locations to build and new raid metas eager to be adapted. After some deliberation, we'd settled on the Forest Spiral, a potential fortress with the lack of airspace and one ramp access. Through avoiding insta-death OSDs, realising the potential of vein farming, the Extinction base grew at an incredible rate, but our next challenge was around the corner. The world of Ark had finally promised a conclusion to its lore through an all-odds battle against the most formidable foe yet, the King Titan. And determination set the scene as we slayed each Titan and farmed the items required to finally meet this monolith. Our first attempt was certainly naive, as we entered the fight unprepared and underpowered, resulting in an inevitable loss. But we'd adapt, learn and finally conquer the beast in all of its forms, narrowingly defeating the alpha version with barely anything left. As 2019 dawned, it was announced Fantastark would come to a close, so we challenged the entire server cluster to raid us before it ended, and the largest lag-filled raid came to be, as everything got thrown at our base, and we fought through the lag to defend what we could. Realising any attempt to finish the raid would be futile, an invincible admin mounted megamech would join the fight, whereby we could only really sit and watch as our progress turned to ashes and end our journey on the cluster. We decided to return once more to Cluster Fukt, but with the lack of trust from our previous leave, it always seemed to be overshadowed by a wanting to leave Ark. Still attached by the constant PvP we had, but certainly set up some fantastic battles. But we had grown weary, and ambition had diminished, so we left just as quickly as we came here. Here's a recollection from Snow.
Get fucked.
There was a few stints on other servers for short spurts, but me and Snow knew we'd done everything we wanted to in Ark, and there was really only one thing left to do. We began to discuss the idea. What if we could offer a server that not only offered the same high boosted PvP we had loved, but with a concept that encouraged pursuits of a new resource that would overarch any other? Energy became that resource, something you could obtain via a variety of ways, but to take to any map you chose and craft elements instantly with. And so it began. The concept was created, the brand was designed, the Discord set up and the servers coded. Ark Energy was born. Through pushing and pushing, the message got out and the name became a brand as more and more players joined us. To have grown from that idea on our own and to be graced by the thousands of players that have visited, with a large amount staying and supporting us, is without question humbling. It's a platform I'm incredibly proud of creating, not least helped by our community, admin team and Snow, creating thousands of memories, hundreds of videos, including of course the videos I'm doing now, and the video you're watching right now. Thank you for listening to my story, thank you for following me on this journey, and I hope there will be more tales to tell. In fact, this is just a quick skim through years of stories created by a developer that should be proud to see 5 years on what they've created. I'm Ross Clark, this is me, thank you. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and as always, peace out.